thinking is punishable, right thinking will be as quickly rewarded. You will find it an effective combination.
Greetings, salutations, welcome in, welcome in, welcome in. Apologize about the slight delay there. We're mostly on time. For some reason, the internet dropped the second I hit live the first time, so I had to go with the router for a minute. We're here. We're here. Oh, that was supposed to fade out. Damn it! It's it. And every time it boots me out of StreamYard, it resets all of the settings. So, and sometimes I forget little things like that. Anyway. We are here tonight. Welcome in, everybody. Welcome in. If you're watching on Twix, on Rumble, or on YouTube, let me know. Let me know. Drop in the chat because tonight I'm pretty much void and bereft of all topics of any real significance. So really just kind of felt like hanging out with you guys tonight. So that's what we're doing. We'll probably talk about a few things, maybe spooky season related, just what's in the title. That kind of thing. But yeah, mostly just hang out. Hey, JB, welcome in, dude. Appreciate you being here. Again, sorry about the delay, the slight delay there. That was not sure what happened. The router decided to, do its own thing. It was like, you know what? You want to run a show? I don't think so, sucker. So it is what it is. But yeah, how you guys doing? Let me know. I'm doing okay myself. I thought about running this maybe tomorrow night instead, but because it is the end of the month, it's got to be sometime this week. But actually, something came up today. Something came up today. A good friend of the channel and a friend of mine personally, Clifton 3D. Y'all might remember him. He's been on. He has been on Screaming to the Void, but he's most frequently been on Abyssal Musings with us. And I've done a few things with him on other channels too. Good dude, for a ginger and a German. Anyhow, he ended up in the hospital this morning, so he's okay-ish, right? They're running tests, figuring stuff out, and all that stuff. But I told, and I don't know a whole lot beyond that because frankly, it's not my business, it's not my place to ask that kind of thing. But he could use your thoughts, and if you pray, if that's your thing, maybe throw some of that his way too. So just keep that in mind. It's Clifton 3D. He's a good pal and a friend of the channel and all that. So yeah. Felix Richard, hey fake, pack your bags for hell. I am uncertain what you mean by that. It seems like a bit of a mishmash of a sentence there, buddy. So pack my bags for hell. How do you know? That actually brings up an interesting.
Whoops. Wrong one. Sorry, buddy.
What are you doing?
Literally, I'm in the wrong. I literally clicked on the wrong thing. Sorry about that.
Nope, no worries.
I'll see you later.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Lawrence Knight, my partner on Abyssal Musings. Popping
Hey,
in
I
for a
just watched
flyby.
it. I just watched. You're on live. I just went back a little bit. What the hell happened to Clifton?
He had some stuff that he's got to go in. He's getting tested for in the hospital. So I assume he's going to keep us updated, that kind of thing. But right now, yeah, it's just really kind of a matter of crossing our fingers for him.
Right.
He's fine. He's just like there's some stuff that they need to look at and maybe take care of.
All right. Well, I'll leave you to it. I'll see you on Friday, or I'll call you or something. Damn.
All right.
I got a message.
Cool. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that was Lawrence Knight. You might recognize him from Friday nights and occasionally Saturdays. Also over on the Exile Lioness 2 channel. He's my buddy over there too. And all that. But yeah, so Felix Richard, again, not sure what you mean by this. This is an interesting sentence, but like it's kind of hard to infer anything when you don't use like punctuation or unless you're saying, hey, fake pack my bags for hell, like pretend to pack them. In which case, like I guess I could do that. I don't know. It's what it is, but either way, engagement is appreciated. So Yeah. Our buddy Clifton, he could use thoughts. He could use whatever you care to send his way in terms of like vibes or thoughts or whatever. If you pray, that sort of thing, you know, maybe mention him, whatever, you know, he'd appreciate it. You know, he's going to be offline for a little while he takes care of some things. And all that. I got my fingers crossed. I don't have any real doubt that he'll pull through. And, you know, nothing too serious, you know. But then again, we're all. I think he's quite a bit younger than I am. Now that I think about it, I think he's quite a bit younger than I am. But either way, yeah, you know, when you start approaching middle age, things crop up. Got to take care of them. So that's what he's doing. He's taking care of himself. Anywho, the thing I was going to mention though, Felix Richard brought it up, the whole hell thing. A friend of mine from years ago, long before I was ever a voice in the void of the internet, you know, she had this belief that we were already in hell, right? Like time on earth had come and gone, and this was in fact the afterlife, and that's why it sucks so much. You know, like believes it with all her heart and soul, kind of thing. I don't necessarily agree. I don't tend to agree, but it is what it is. And I always thought that was a kind of a fascinating idea. That there was a comic book years ago by a guy named John Vasquez, also responsible for the cartoon Invader Zim, a number of comic titles, the most famous of which is probably Johnny the Homicidal Maniac. And in, I think, issue 6 of Johnny the Homicidal Maniac, Johnny goes to hell, right? And he meets the devil and he gets taken on a tour, and hell is exactly like Earth in every single way, except one. He goes to get a bagel, right? He eats a bagel and he goes, oh man, hell makes a tasty bagel, right? But cream cheese was 50 cents extra, like on top of what it normally would be. And that was the only significant difference between hell and the world of the living. Just kind of an interesting concept. Well, I'm not sure what that was all about, but it is what it is. It was a fun comic. It was about as irreverent as you can get. There were pages and pages and pages of like weird filler shit, and even a character called Filler Bunny for when he had no other ideas. He would just do stuff on panel to sort of like fill space, or in the panels, rather, on the page. You know, and it also introduced a character named Squee, who got his own 4-issue miniseries shortly after that, where he goes through all kinds of horrendous trauma. And it's interesting. You can see that a lot of the ideas that get used in the cartoon on that was on Nickelodeon, Invader Zim, you could see where they came from, what he was bringing to the table from his older work, which is definitely not for children. I mean, I think it's issue 2 of Johnny the Homicidal Maniac, where Johnny encounters Squee behind a mall about to get molested by a fucking pedophile, right? And to prove to Squee that there is nothing to be afraid of. And I forget what Squee's real name is. Everybody just calls him that because he's terrified of everything, and that's the sound he makes when he's scared. To prove to him that there was nothing to worry about with this pedophile, he cuts the man's head open and pulls his brain out to show him that it's just a lump of pink flesh. So, like I said, definitely not for kids. But some of the things that he used in there, some of the ideas and the art style definitely carries over. The design for Zim itself is actually very, very similar to the design of a character that he has called Pepito, son of the devil. Right. Just kind of some fun stuff. Anyway, so I hope that helps, Felix Richard. I have no idea what you're getting at there. Obviously, you haven't followed up with another comment to clarify or anything like that. So I'm just going on what I see, buddy. But yeah, you brought to mind something I haven't thought about in a very long time. So, well, I guess thank you. So it is what it is. You know, speaking of the Halloween season, Wendigoon put out a video on his second Chandawinda Gang like yesterday. a pretty solid video on the history of the Beast of Gévaudan, which I listened to actually. I was listening to right before I got home and started the stream up here, which we've talked about on SITV quite a bit, and I think it's even come up on Abyssal Musings in relation to like werewolf movies and that sort of thing, and all that. And there is a movie based on the partially, very loosely based on the history of the Beast of Gévaudan that I hype up, despite it being a movie of French origin. It's called Le Pacte de Loup, or Brotherhood of the Wolf. Excellent movie, batshit insane. First third is more or less based on historical facts. Second third is based on historical supposition, and then it gets weird, and it's just completely balls to the wall. It's like live action anime that just it's a wild movie. I really enjoyed that one. But anyway, point being, excuse me. So the Beast of Gévaudan was a creature in the I want to say the 16 or 17 at 1700s, right? 1700s. I don't have like obviously the data right here in front of me. That terrorized the Montrachet region and the Gévaudan region for something like 3 years. Killed a couple hundred people, right? And they never did explain exactly what it was. They're not even sure they ever killed the real thing. They just know that one guy claimed 3 years later to have killed it, and boom, all the killing stopped and all that stuff. So it's really fascinating stuff. Like to eat children's faces and that kind of thing. I mean, it was really, really weird. And France is known for this kind of thing, right? Like some of the worst monsters of like horrifying killing in history, who didn't have like, a national army or agenda to back them up anyway, came from France. Like Bluebeard was French, right? Jean Grenier was French, who was the only man who was actually tried and convicted of werewolfism. Truly believed he was one. Did in fact kill and eat several small people, children, as it were. But honestly, it was like that was a weird case, man. It was a weird case. If you look into that shit, when he was in captivity, awaiting trial, and eventually, I think they hanged him. I think I'd have to look that up. But there were reports of him being more comfortable walking around on all fours, shying away from sunlight, preferring, to growl and all that shit rather than speak, right? It almost seemed more natural for him, according to observers. And while they didn't have like that, the name obviously has been around for a while, but while they didn't have like a technical diagnosis of the specific disorder, there is a disease called lycanthropy. It is both psychological and physical in nature. That does cause you to grow a little bit extra hair. It does cause you to get like sallow, yellowy skin and eyes. It causes you to have an increased sensitivity to sunlight and bright light. And it does make you believe as though you behave as though you believe that you're a beast rather than a man, right? So it's a whole thing. Anyway, Jean Grenier may be the first documented case of this, right? Not to say that there hadn't been others, but he may be the first one that, like, there's a paper trail. You can go look this shit up. It's it's all out there, kind of thing. And it was just an interesting case. I don't remember how many victims he had. Something in the neighborhood of like between 5 and 7. I think probably 6 is a good round number. All of them were young and wayward and, unwatched and all that stuff. And it's just what it is, I guess. There's all kinds of weird figures in history who were just like unbelievably violent or disturbed or whatnot. I also, obviously, as anybody who's watched this channel for a while knows, kind of a bit of a Vlad III buff, Vlad the Impaler, Vlad Dracula. But he wasn't the only one who had a reputation like he did, although he very much earned his reputation, very much earned it. But there was also, I think, a century later, Countess Elizabeth Bathory of Hungary, right? Who they never actually proved how many, but the reigning theory is the number is considered that she had murdered over 600 young women and girls, right, in order to bathe in their blood because she believed that it would preserve her beauty, right? Virginal blood, that kind of thing, which is not a new concept. It's like an old concept. It's why we used to huck virgins in volcanoes or tie them to stakes and feed them to dragons and that kind of thing. It's something about the purity of it, right? Offering of the purity is a sacrifice. And it's just, there's just so many instances of these like incredibly just, I don't even know if, I'm not even going to play this whole, they were mentally ill game. I don't even think that. I think they may have been disturbed, but evil is the word, right? For a lot of them. Vlad was instrumental in holding back Ottoman expansion at the time, right? But he was also embroiled in all kinds of other political conflicts with his neighbors and his relatives and that sort of thing. And the things that he did, while he did bring stability to his region, the things he did to achieve it were inhuman. So he's like, bit of column A, bit of column B, like, which is, but it is kind of fascinating to me that a lot of this stuff is kind of tied into folklore, local folklore, and that sort of thing, which gets blown up, which becomes legend, which gets written down by more quote unquote enlightened people in later centuries, which becomes like part of the burgeoning immersion, or immersion is exactly the wrong word, the emergence of what later became known as popular culture or pop culture. And now we've got Edward Cullen, who just gets pretty when he goes out into the sun, right? Which is the dumbest fucking thing ever, by the way. That's a teenage girl thought that shit up. But it's just kind of funny because you can trace a lot of the stuff back to people who actually lived, and whether or not they were directly connected with what became the legends or not. There are some correlations there, which is kind of interesting to me. Not that any of this has anything to do with anything. It's almost Halloween, so I'm just kind of waxing long about it, I guess, is the phrase. But that's what we're here for tonight, right? That's what we're here for tonight. Just chat, hang out a little bit. Spooky season. Let's have some fun. Yes, there's crazy shit going on in the world tonight. I don't really care. So, I'll care tomorrow. But tonight, not so much. Aside from the thing about Clifton, that's definitely important to me. But otherwise, yeah, it's just been a weird time lately. Weird time. I don't know. You ever notice how when the leaves start changing, right, and falling, it feels like there's kind of almost like a static charge in the air that isn't present during the other seasons, right? You ever notice that? Like you can feel fall in a way that you can't feel the other seasons, right? Like you can obviously observe the other seasons happening, but there's an energy in the air in fall that there isn't at any other time. I speculated on what that is, but I don't have any more knowledge than anyone else does. But I do think it might be the release of all that life force all at once. The whole world's shutting down. It's getting prepared for winter. It's going into the fallow. And yeah, I think there might be something to that, but there's like energy being released somewhere and you can feel it on your skin and in your bones. It's wild. Almost energizing, one might say. Like it definitely perks me up. This is really the only time of year that I feel good, in that sense. It's not like I feel like shit all the time, but there's just something about it perks me right the hell up, and I couldn't tell you what it is, especially at night. Not so much in the day, although it's still present in the day. It's just the hate ball puts a damper on things for me for pretty much everything. So, yeah, you know, I call it that because it's a ball and it hates me, the sun. So, um, but yeah, it's a strange time of year. It's a very strange time of year. So I think that might be why it's considered a spooky season. Obviously, in the American sense, it's very commercialized, right? We go out and we buy these cute little masks and we get all this like brand name candy and we put them in brightly colored bowls and we carve our pumpkins and stuff with fun little themes and you know it's a good time. It's a fun time, but it's not nearly the fearful time that it once was, and in some parts of the world probably still is. I mean, Halloween is obviously not practiced everywhere worldwide. It's really not. And as a matter of fact, it wouldn't even be practiced in the United States or I think Canada, if it hadn't been for the number of Scottish and Irish immigrants that came over in the late 1800s, early 1900s, because they brought those practices with them. They brought those old beliefs with them. I mean, most of them at the time were either Anglican or Roman Catholic or whatever. So they heavily leaned into that stuff. But a lot of your older folklore doesn't just wash away because, the church told you to, right? And they still remember those stories. So they came over here and they told the stories, and the stories got passed around and they got kind of adopted by other people who weren't from those areas. I mean, every region has its like weird little beliefs and whatnot, but um, until it became something that was kind of universally acknowledged, even if it isn't officially recognized as, as like an important mainstream holiday. Like, I mean, obviously it's practiced like it is, it's celebrated like it is, but it's not like, I mean, it's not officially recognized as like a government holiday or any of that stuff. More like fun time, right? And it's of interest to me because the people who brought that over did not bring over happy, fun stories, right? Those are stories of the festival of Samhain, the what the Roman Catholics referred to as All Hallows Eve, which is the day before All Saints Day, which is a very important Catholic holiday, from what I understand. I don't know. They've got like 400 very important holidays, and there are only 365 days in a year. So go figure. But they, it is just of interest to me how everything gets kind of diluted and then commercialized. Like the commercialization came later, right? They came later with like companies like Hallmark and Kmart and what have you, Woolworths, that sort of thing. If for those of you who are old enough to remember what Woolworths is, department stores made a big deal out of it. They made a bundle on it, and these kind of things. And so the practice of putting candied bribes out on your porch to keep the demons from your house became giving candy to children who were dressed up like demons or ghosts or goblins or whatever, what have yous. The practice of dressing up was originally to mask yourself from the demons so that they did not take you back with them from whence they came when they left at the end of the night. It used to be accomplished by smearing your face with blood. But now we have fun plastic masks and such. In fact, I think one of my avatars actually has, let me see about this. Throw down on. I do have a one that's got like a plastic like Dracula mask on it. One of my older avatars. Haven't done anything with it this year, but let's just check. Yep, therapy. Yep, Dracula mask over my old avatar. It's like cheap little plastic thing, and it's actually like a photo of a plastic mask. It's not an illustration, so just if you look at it real good, it's very shiny. But I mean, it's not terrifying, right? It's cute. It's kitsch. It's niche. It's quaint, if you will. And I think there's something about that. Like things get watered down over time, right? Things get watered down over time. They don't hold the potency that they once did. Um, and some of that is I think a way for people to cope because honestly, peoples all over the world have held some pretty fucking horrific beliefs at different points in time. And some of them, like some of the festivals in spring, right? Like the maypole. Most people in America don't recognize what that pole represents. It's a penis. It represents a penis for fertility because springtime is the time of fertility. When you talk about Easter and people ask, people I know have asked me personally, they're just like, why in the hell are all these eggs and rabbits involved in Easter? That has nothing to do with Jesus, right? It has nothing to do with the resurrection. It has nothing to do with these sets of beliefs over here. And I point out to them, neither does the name of the holiday. The name of the holiday is an evolved or misspoken or perversion of an ancient goddess of fertility, Aoster, also known as Ishtar, who was the Babylonian goddess of fertility and sex, right? Making babies and the act of making babies. That was her whole thing, right? And that holiday still bears her name or a version of her name to this day, right? The rabbits have always been a symbol of fertility because of the way they breed, because of how fast they replenish their numbers, how fast they increase their population. And eggs are a symbol of birth and rebirth, right? Almost universally. But none of the, you could take that as a symbol, the rebirth aspect of it as to tie it into resurrection that way, right? But honestly, its association with the Easter name has absolutely nothing to do with Jesus. Nothing at all. And it's just kind of interesting to me that those old beliefs get watered down, or they get co-opted or folded into more current beliefs or practices, or just good times, and a lot of that gets forgotten, largely as the people who believed in those things are also forgotten over time, right? Which is the way of things. Most of the people who practiced Ishtar worship have been dead for thousands of years. Like Babylon is no longer there. Baghdad is built atop its ancient ruins. And Baghdad is a very different city than Babylon was. And it's just it is just kind of the way of things, but it does get watered down, particularly in a society that's as opportunistic and commercial as Western society, specifically in the United States, right? I mean, I'm sure this happens all over, but the United States in particular has shown a propensity. If a buck can be made from a thing, a buck will be made from a thing. Period. It's kind of what we do, right? The capitalist and entrepreneurship of the American spirit is something that honestly, I think is probably our strongest and most enduring trait. Like whether or not the thing that's being marketed is in good taste, or whatever. Right? It's just if a buck can be made from a thing, a buck will be made from a thing, and by golly, we're going to be the ones that do it. Terry Pratchett, when he was describing his fictional city of Ankh-Morpork, talks about the spirit because it's alive and well in the people there, and I'm fairly certain that whole place is just a critique of America, from a very sarcastic and humorous lens. But yeah, I read about those characters and about what they do, and it's like, oh, here's an opportunity. I'm going to seize on it before anybody else does, and that way it's mine, and I'll make all the money. It was a very American way of thinking, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I applaud the free market and the entrepreneurship and the ingenuity and all of that. I just find it amusing that we'll take the darkest and most horrifying parts of somebody's own mythologies and we'll turn them into something commercial, and we'll sell you a fucking greeting card along with it. I think that's hilarious. You know, it's a way to be, I guess. It's a way to be. But I mean, this same kind of spirit is what drove the country from its beginnings. This entrepreneurial spirit. It wasn't always entrepreneurial, I guess, is probably the wrong word to attach to it, but the drive to excel, to build, to become more than you are, was also applied to us economically, and how we view things there. And it's just it is what it is, I guess. And we are who we are, and we'll continue to be who we are until we aren't who we are anymore. But we do well. We do okay. And sometimes it leads to great things. Sometimes it leads to kind of horrifyingly high prices for insulin. So there's that, right? Too much of anything is it can be a bad thing. But it also led us to build great cities. It led us to invent the internal combustion engine. It led to the first flight at Kitty Hawk. Led to all kinds of things, good and bad, right? And that's what progress is. It's not what people would have you believe it is today. When the society moves forward, right? That's when the progress happens. But I hate using the word now because it's tainted, along with so many other words that used to mean normal things. But yeah, that's what progress is. I mean, a couple of brothers down in Kitty Hawk decided they were gonna, build a thing. They flew for, not even that far. I don't remember the exact distance. It was somewhere between. It was like 37 feet or some shit like that. But what happens with that? That led the way to supersonic technology. That led the way to rocketry. In conjunction, obviously, with mortars and fireworks and that sort of thing from like way back in the day. But the ideas kind of converged, right, and became these new things. Because of Kitty Hawk, because of the Wright brothers, we reached the moon. If they hadn't done what they did, I don't think we would have. If the Germans used to have these kind of supersonic like rocket jets, right? This would have been during the Third Reich, so there was a lot of other shit going on too. But these specific ships weren't, they were designed like if you could take a lawn dart and make it an airplane, that's what these things look like, right? And instead of flying from point A to point B like our current aircraft does, right? It did it much more efficiently by launching into the stratosphere and dropping over the destination point, right? Because the way that the with the spin of the Earth, you could, in theory, make that journey a lot faster than just flying straight through. You go up, the Earth moves, you come down. Boom, there you are. Hey, old Blendy, welcome in. Technically, yes. Technically, yes, it does. It does still mean happy. It also means a bunch of other shit, right? And it got attached to gay people in the 50s as an acronym, actually. An acronym for good as you. G-A-Y, gay. And all that, which of course then eventually supplanted the old meaning in common usage, in the common lexicon. So it went from being, joyous and merry to anal sex enthusiasm. Frankly, because at the time it wasn't applied to women who were into women. It was only applied to men who were into men, because it was the 50s. It was unthinkable that a woman would want to be with another woman. Generally speaking, I'm sure it happened, but it wasn't something that got talked about. And most people would probably refuse to acknowledge that was a thing, right? Especially people who were involved in it. They would be the loudest shouting out against it for fear of being found out, right? That's where the whole idea of like, so you accuse somebody of being gay and they just like scream at you is like, no, I'm not, no, I'm not, and the idea being, you protest so long and so loud that you're lending credence to the idea when I was just fucking with you. Kind of comes from is because during that time it was not a good idea to be out and proud, as it were. And the very few people who probably fell into that category, because let's face it, those percentages haven't changed much, right? Would have been vocally against it because for fear of being found out, most likely. Just walked in at 30 minutes and no context for progress. Yeah, man, I'm just kind of like riffing here, a little stream of consciousness. It is what it is. JB popped in the chat earlier and hasn't said much since. So I don't know. I was just kind of like winging it a little bit because I don't really have any topics today, man. I'm just here hanging out with you guys because it's that time of the month. Yes, that's right. I said it. It's my time of the month. It's time for Whispering in the Dark. And it's almost Halloween. It lots of stuff here. And well, you know how it is. You've seen enough of my shit to understand that sometimes I start talking and I go to strange places. Especially if nobody else is here with me. It's just sort of a stream of consciousness thing. And sometimes we get weird. We get a little silly. But you know that. So yeah. But like you were saying with that, with the word gay changing its meaning, and not just the word gay. That's just the obvious one, given the climate in today's society in the West, in America. But there are a number of words that just don't mean what they used to. Hell, every generation starts using words in strange ways that previous generations are like, what the fuck did you just say? It's like, I remember when I was a kid, we would start throwing around the term bad, but we meant good, right? It's like, oh, that's so bad, but you meant that's really great, right? But you couldn't say that's really great because then your parents would fucking understand you, and that was unthinkable. So yeah, like that one. I have no idea what the fuck this is supposed to mean, right? I am too old to understand the modern youth. And I remember there was a time when I don't know if I would be considered cool, but I at least understood what coolness was. This makes no sense to me. So yeah, it's just the slang of the time evolves alongside the whichever generation is throwing it around, and there will come a time when their youth are going to be saying shit that they don't understand, right? It happens to every generation. Whether we want to think so or not, this is one of the few times I will agree that just because so it's just them being lazy about their sentences. That's it. It's one fucking syllable. It doesn't mean anything out of context. You bet for sure. It's like when they say sus, like suspicious or suspect is not that fucking hard, man. It's like a couple extra syllables. You just go around saying sus. That could be short for susurrus, which is a kind of sound that you hear in long grass when the wind is blowing gently. It's a very specific term. Right? Internet brain is what it is. It's fucking internet brain. I mean, one of my own kids, I've had full-on arguments with about using terms like LOL out loud, right? Like with her mouth, right? I understand abbreviating it in a text when you have limited characters. I get that, right? But when you actually say it to a person, like, why? Sam got no riz? Yeah, no, I don't. And the fact that they took the middle of that fucking word and made a whole thing out of it really bothers me. Charisma. It's 3 syllables. Not that hard. It's almost like we're not teaching our children how to speak and write. And This is an ongoing problem, I think, that bothers me, is the idea that there's a whole cadre of people who are teaching kids what to think, not how to think, right? And when you teach them what to think and not how to think, they also don't know how to reason. They don't know how to, it's a whole thing. It's like all you got to do is introduce them to reading, writing, arithmetic, and the Socratic method. That's it. That's your whole basis for pretty much everything education wise, right? I mean, instilling a good work ethic in there is probably a great idea too. But those are the building blocks. That's what you need. And we're not doing that. We're not doing any of those things. You know? No, they won't. No, they won't. And let's be honest, most of us didn't love 23 Skidoo either. You know? It's like mid 2000s. What's up? Right? You remember that shit? What's up? Fucking swept the goddamn nation. There were beer commercials doing it. You know, thank you very much, Wayans Brothers, for spreading that around. You know, some people today, my buddy Paul Hadouken, loves saying that shit. He came into a stream I was doing last night and said it in the chat. It just, I don't know. And maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just because I grew up reading, you know, classical works. You know, people who had been formally educated who were writing things. Some people who weren't formally educated but still preferred to write things in an anachronistic sort of way. Anachronistic might be the wrong word. Archaic, rather. You know, but you know, I grew up. I read Shakespeare. I read Poe. I read Verne, Wells, Shelley, Byron. You know, like Algernon Blackwood. You know, these are the kind of things. And then later in my adult life, I started getting into guys like Lovecraft, who idolized the way they wrote in the 19th century. And he just kind of ran with that and made it his own sort of thing. But or even the early to mid 20th century, right? People were much more precise. They were much more careful with how they constructed their language. You know, so as to be clear about the meaning in most cases. And I miss that, because now you read something on the internet and half of it is gibberish. You know, yes, get off my lawn. That is 100% right. Get the fuck off my lawn. It's my lawn, and in my lawn, we use proper English, mostly. It's just one of those things that, and I'm sure it's not just me. It's probably lots of people throughout lots of languages and countries and nationalities and times and, like, you know, centuries and whatnot. There's always somebody like me who laments the degeneration, the willful degeneration of the language that they speak and that they love. You know, and I mean, even English, you go back far enough, right? It doesn't look anything like English, you know, as we know it today. Doesn't sound anything like it. You know, and I'm sure some of those people were like, well, why are these people sounding different when the newer sounds started coming up, the newer phrases, the newer spellings. Actually, spelling was kind of just a suggestion in English until one guy sat down and, like, wrote out a codex for it. But yeah, I'm sure there's always been somebody who was just like, hey, guys, stop fucking it up. Stop fucking it up. I'm sure there will be people who come after me who say the same thing, even though the language, to my eyes and my ears, will be completely unrecognizable at that point. You know, I lament it, but I recognize that I can't change it. Old Buddy says, nothing changed much, just your awareness of it, in my opinion. plenty of educated people, while the dumps have been buying National Enquirer since 5000 BC. That magazine's been around for a fucking minute. That's true. It's like two-headed caveman. Fuck, you remember the old tabloids that used to be on the impulse buy racks at the supermarkets, man? I mean, I'm sure you get some of them now, but it's all like Hollywood starlets and fucking Kardashians and shit now, right? They're all gossip rags now, but they used to have fun ones, like the National Enquirer. Man, remember when they would be out of ideas for that week, so they just fucking print another Bat Boy story. Poor son of a bitch. Hey, Abe, welcome in. Good to see you. Bat Boy, or the dog-faced boy who was just a very hairy kid. Bubble Boy. It was the girl with the webbed toes, all that sort of thing. Where like cow gives birth to live snakes, right? You remember stories like that? Oh man, I kind of miss those days, because it was all silly. It was all nonsensical. Every once in a while, you'd find something buried in it that might have a grain of truth to it. But when they were low on ideas, it was Bat Boy on the main photo, and then up in the corner you'd have that same goddamn blurry photo of Sasquatch every time when they were out of ideas. Yeah, Bat Boy was fun. I mean, I doubt it was fun for him, but for the rest of us who didn't know any better. And I was quite young, so like you go up in the supermarket, right? You buy all your shit, you go up to the aisle, and the checkout aisle, and there would just be these ridiculous things in the impulse buy shelves. And they were so much fun, and if somebody ahead of you had like half a house of shit to fucking buy, right, you had some time on your hands, right? So you flip through the pages a little bit and see what else was in there, like aliens kidnap farmer, dude comes back pregnant kind of shit. Yeah. I forgot that wasn't Men in Black, but yeah, it was a real phenomenon in this country at one point. It was sort of like our late 20th century version of like the old Penny Dreadfuls back in the day in England, back in the 1800s in England, where they just like tell you stories of like shockingness and deprivation and degradation and all this stuff. Well, mostly to do with like killers and missing people and that sort of thing. Sometimes there'd be a supernatural element to them, but mostly it was just like, oh yeah, homegirl got sliced up over in Whitechapel the other day. It was pretty bad. Here's the gory details, and then they'd fucking lay it out for you. The internet is just to both benefit and detriment of society, bringing everything to the surface. I think it will gradually improve things in the market of ideas. YouTube exposed us too much. YouTube did. YouTube is not alone, though. YouTube kind of collated some stuff, but there's other stuff that you can't find on YouTube that we found elsewhere. But I will say that there are days when I think, and here I am on YouTube, right? I'm on Rumble, I'm on Twix right now. But there are days when I think that the internet, much like free will, was a mistake, right? We can't put the cat back in the bag at this point. But some things could have been avoided if maybe Charlie the Unicorn didn't happen, or Mr. Hands. Some of the old viral shit that went out there, like there's some of that stuff. Maybe we could have avoided some of the things that we're into now or that we're exposed to these days if those hadn't happened in the first place. Maybe not. Maybe it would have been much fucking worse. Who knows? I mean, Mr. Hands, it doesn't get a lot worse than Mr. Hands, but still, that was probably exactly the wrong example to bring up. So sorry. If you're out there and you don't know what that is, do not look it up. Just trust me. Trust me on that. If you never trust me on anything else, trust me on that. So, yeah. But I mean, the other side of the internet is we've always had like this hunger for, you shut the fuck up, Abe, about salad fingers. um, we've always had this kind of hunger for the macabre and the unusual, and there's always been something sort of, at least in the last few centuries, to fill the void. Like you got your penny dreadfuls in the 1800s. You got the circuses and freak shows that arose in the early 19th century through the middle of it. And some of those lasted for a while after that too. People, P.T. Barnum made a mint on strange and unusual, a lot of which he made the fuck up. Not all of it, but a lot of it he did make it the fuck up. He was very famous for a specific quote, which I don't know is actually his, but it's definitely been attributed to him. A sucker is born every minute. Yeah, Faces of Death VHS. That was later, but yeah, that was part of it. It's part of that same phenomenon. So, lucky you. You never saw one. I have. I wish I hadn't, but I have. I've seen a few. I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail as to why, but I used to have this girlfriend who was really, really, really into those movies. A long time ago. Very off-putting woman. And it's, but there's always that morbid fascination. That same thing, like when you encounter like a particularly bad wreck or a house fire or something, there's almost a compulsion to stop what you're doing and watch. Not to help, but to watch, see what happens. And there's a part of you that knows that it's wrong to do that shit. There's a part of you that screams out against it because it knows that you can't get this shit out of your head. But there's another part, a deeper part, I think, that compels you to continue to watch, even though your head is screaming to look away, right? And that Faces of Death shit that falls right into that category. There's a song by the band Tool called Vicarious on their 10,000 Daisy album. And I think it perfectly sums all that shit up, with the line, because I need to watch things die from a good safe distance. Vicariously, I live while the whole world dies. And it's specifically talking about horrific news stories and television. Which it's one of the very few Tool songs you can listen to and you know exactly what they're getting at. Like a lot of it's very ambiguous, ambiguously worded and whatnot, specifically because they don't want to assign a specific meaning to it. It's a whole, whatever it means to you kind of thing. It's kind of an artsy fartsy kind of approach to music making, if you ask me. And I used to love their music. Used to just love it. I'd sit there and listen to it for days on end. They kind of lost me with that Fear Inoculum album, though. That was not a good album. I might be the only person on earth who says that, but it was not a good album. Did not enjoy that. Not that has anything to do with anything, but point is they made a song that was very on the nose about that bloodlust, that need to see things. I mean, you go back to the Coliseum, same shit. All the people who were sitting in the fucking stands in the Coliseum, right, watching this stuff, getting off on it. It's the exact same impulse. It's never left us, as a species. It's I wouldn't even call it part of the animal brain, because the animal brain, while willing to kill, does so to survive, to defend itself or to feed itself. It doesn't do it because it gets off on it. It's the higher brain that gets off on it. A lot of people don't want to hear that, but it's true. It's the intellectual side that finds pleasure in the suffering of others, and what the Germans coined an entire word for, the concept of Schadenfreude. So, well, when you can't help, why not watch? Well, in my case, I can't speak for everybody, but in my case, there are certain things that once they get into my head, they don't leave. Right? I think that's true of a lot of people, but it's definitely true in my case. There are things that will haunt me behind the eyes. Right? You guys might remember earlier this year, I had a bit of a freak out over some shit that I still see when I close my eyes to this day. I just got a better handle on my ability to contain my visceral reaction to it now than I did at the time. But yeah, it's there's some things we just don't need to see, man. We don't need to put certain things into our heads. I mean, aside from the desensitization, stumbled all over that, the desensitization factor, right? Which is a very real thing. The more you're exposed to horrors, the less horrified you are. And it isn't because it's because you get used to it. It's because you become numb to it. That no longer what used to shock you no longer does. That's true of societies, just as it's true of individuals. I mean, there's a reason that pornography goes so far and so hard these days with some truly out there shit. Is because photograph in a magazine of a girl demurely hiding her naughty bits behind a fucking bedpost in a black and white photo in Playboy in 1956 or whatever doesn't do it for people anymore. They become inured to that. And by increments, we find ourselves where we are now. And that's just an example. I mean, it's like I'm not ragging on that specifically. It's just that's just an example. It's true of anything that we find ourselves getting in over our heads on. Too much of anything can be a bad thing. You develop a taste for it and then a tolerance to it. And then the next thing you know, to quote myself a couple of times over here, you got 8 bodies out behind the shed. It's not good. I mean, obviously we shouldn't shelter ourselves too much because there are certain things that we need to be aware of to survive in the world. But I think overexposing ourselves to the heart of darkness, if you will, can have detrimental effects that are extremely long lasting, if not permanent. That's one of the reasons why I don't advocate for doing the exact same things as as the enemy does, as the other side does. I know there's a lot of people out there who are like, oh, they break the rules. They don't believe in rules all the time. I was like, yes, and look at what it's cost them. It's cost them their souls. I don't think I think that cost is too high, frankly. I think that some people are willing to pay that cost for others, and that's a noble thing to a degree. But I don't know. I think if it costs us who and what we are in the end, then it doesn't really matter if we win or lose, right? Because we've lost ourselves as it is. Obviously there are some times when things need to happen, they need to be done, but that doesn't mean we should savor it or revel in it. Yeah, all animals will watch, but humans might get enjoyment out of suffering for sure. There are a handful of other animals that do have sadistic tendencies, but not many at all. But there are a handful. I mentioned the Beast of Gévaudan earlier, which they don't really know what that was, but it appeared to kill for the sake of killing, for the love of the game, if you will. Whereas a normal wolf would do it because he was hungry and because he wanted to not starve to death, which makes sense to pretty much everything. But there are a few out there. Dolphins get pretty sadistic with other species on occasion. Various species of porpoise, actually. Orcas, in particular, mean sons of bitches sometimes. I just found out the other day that occasionally seals will rape baby penguins in Antarctica. Right? That messed up my whole day. And they do it for fun. I mean, there are other species that do awful things for some pleasurable reasons. I've noticed though that most of them tend to be mammals, so maybe it's a mammal thing, right? And obviously humans are very, very bad at it. Chimpanzees can be extremely cruel for like no reason whatsoever, and they will laugh at your pain, um, kind of thing. But yeah, it's mostly us. It's mostly us. You know. So we got get numb, then you can't feel anything about it anymore. Get numb to everything, then you find yourself on Epstein Island. It's just not healthy. Level of desensitization is unnatural. I agree, 100%. You know, like there are certain lines that we shouldn't cross for the sake of our souls. You know, all that. Yeah, no, I mean, I realize it isn't nice. And cats are another one. I've seen cats be cruel because they enjoyed it. Also, squirrels for some reason. Um, you know, crows will do it too. So maybe it's not just mammals, but mostly mammals in my experience. But very rarely, like even mean dogs aren't mean because they get off on it, right? They're mean because they see everything in the world as a fucking threat. Because so far, everything has been. I'm sure some of the individuals are probably born rotten, like in everything else, but it's not like a thing you can point to, like this species of dog. Oh yeah, they just love killing. You know, it's their whole thing is killing. They just love killing. And even if you could point to them and say that, right, it's because we bred them to love it, right? Same reason that you could apply that across the board. We bred Saint Bernards to be rescue dogs. We bred pit bulls, frankly, for war. Well, for killing anyway. You know, we bred you know, German shepherds for police action. You know, we bred a lot of hell. We bred Chihuahuas to be eaten, and Shih Tzus, for that matter, right? Once upon a time, dogs were just dogs. You know, I don't think they got to a point where they were just needlessly cruel because they liked it. You know, just cause. Humans, on the other hand, apes hunt monkeys just for fun. Yeah, some do, but you also got to keep in mind that some apes will also settle disputes by jerking off at each other too. Apes are strange creatures. It's like gorillas in particular will solve disputes that way, and whoever finishes first wins the argument, essentially. You know, it's a whole thing. Yeah. And yet it doesn't stop us, does it, old Blendy? You know, as a people, as a species, it doesn't stop us. You'd think it would, because we do know better. You know, just even logically, like being like that is detrimental to a functional society, right? You know, just talking about Vlad the Impaler, right? Very cruel, bloodthirsty man, by all accounts. Even the people, excuse me, who were in favor of him would talk about his excessive cruelty and the horrendous things he would do to people. Even if he was doing it for the right reasons, he was also getting off on it. And we know that he was getting off on it because later on, when he was imprisoned by his cousin or whatever, he was continuing to practice impalement and torture on the mice in his cell, like little pieces of wood. So it wasn't just a tactic with him. Right? He got off on it. You know, there's whole stories about him setting up his table for his like lunch meal or whatever, while people who worked for him were hacking people apart all around him because he enjoyed the ambiance. You know, not a good dude. Not a good dude. Understandable if you know like how he got to that point, but you know, it doesn't mean you should definitely follow those footsteps or anything like that. That's just, you know, though that was a hell of a time to be alive. You know, life was cheap, death was everywhere, and there wasn't a single party that wasn't involved in some atrocity or brutality at the time. But he's remembered because his was excessive, even by their standards. Yeah. It's just crazy days, man. I don't know. That's why I never really got into that Faces of Death stuff. It's like there's some things I'm sitting here and I'm thinking to myself, I was like, I shouldn't be seeing this. I certainly shouldn't be watching this as a form of entertainment, but I shouldn't be seeing this. You know, I've had a few experiences in my real life that I'm not going to go into detail on, but we're seeing some really ugly things happen to some people, and that stays with you. And when they make videos about it, which like you said, are technically educational or whatever, but they're really not. That's not what they're there for. It cheapens it somehow, and it chips away at the soul just a little bit more. Yeah, it's not good. So, okay, everyone has a bad day now and again. Yeah, that's true. That is true. Everyone does have a bad day now and again. My bad days don't usually involve impaling 20,000 enemy soldiers as a warning to an oncoming army, though. Generally speaking, that doesn't come up much. Hey, serious man, welcome. Or Aaron Laura. I holy shit, did I read your name wrong? My apologies. Hi, Aaron Laura. Welcome in. Good to see you. I don't know why. I'm sitting here blinking shit out of my eyes. I think maybe I need to like look at some glasses or something, because staring at these screens all the time has really not been great for my vision. So, but either way, welcome in. Sorry I misnamed you. That was not my intention. But yeah, I don't know. I'm feeling kind of weirdly reflective tonight. That's yeah, I just don't know. So let's see. Your bad days would be that, but the police would probably find you. I mean, pretty hard to miss 20,000 bodies on sticks. So yeah, they would probably find you. Yeah. It's you could find that place by smell alone, man. We're not talking fresh corpses here. So, oh man, yeah. Oh, so to recap a little bit for some people who just coming in now, specifically, obviously we were talking about a variety of things. I'm just kind of like winging it here, but at the top of the show, I mentioned our pal Clifton 3D is currently getting some tests done in the hospital. So if you pray or cross your fingers or wish him well, he should be okay. They're just checking into some stuff and taking care of some stuff needs taken care of. But either way, couldn't hurt to throw some good vibes his way. So keep him in mind and all that. Otherwise, yeah, he's doing okay enough to fucking answer me when I DM'd him earlier today about it. So but yeah. So just keep him in mind. Cross your bollocks. That sounds painful, and I'm not sure he'd want that. Like that doesn't seem like the kind of thing he's into. Damn. But yeah, just keep him in your thoughts, folks. Like I said, he should be fine. He should, he's just getting some stuff checked. But in the meantime, he's going to be MIA from the internet for a little while. So that's really it for the updates and all that stuff for everybody who missed that at the beginning. Bollocks equals hand prayers, or is greater than hand prayers. I'm sure it is. I'm sure the pain alone makes that like more intense. I never understood that about certain sects. The whole. I get that growth only comes through suffering. I understand that, right? But there's you don't need to intentionally inflict excessive suffering on yourself to grow, that's just going to do permanent irreparable damage. I think twisting your balls up so that they cross might not be the great idea. You know. And also, I don't know if he'd appreciate that sentiment. That might mean something completely different in Germany. They're into some weird sex shit over there, man. So twisted testes for everyone. Yeah. Oh, I'm good, man. I'm gonna keep mine nice and straight. Thank you. So, whatever you're into, I guess. That's just, sounds like it wouldn't be that much fun to me personally. Just watched Alex Bale's Teletubby video earlier today. I'm still messed up over it. It's wild. I don't know if I know that video. The Teletubby video that comes to mind for me wasn't Alex Bale, as far as I know. I forget the name of the channel that did it, but essentially it talked about how the Teletubbies were an extension of eldritch abominations into our perceived universe, kind of thing. It took concepts like what the internet did to Garfield and it ran with it with the Teletubbies, and it goes to some very strange fucking places. I don't know. One of these days, I'll link it in a chat or something like that. I'd have to go look it up, but but yeah, Teletubbies are some weird shit, man. Some weird shit. Always were. So always were. Yeah. Although I do very much recommend Super Eye Patch Wolf's video, What the Internet Did to Garfield, to everybody in the world. I think everybody needs to see that shit at least once. Speaking of watching things that you weren't meant to see. No. And failing that, definitely go look up Gorefield on the internet. Do that. It's totally worth it. Every once in a while, if you pay attention to the community tab, every once in a while, I will repost one of the Gorefield illustrations because I think it's hilarious, and because Mealy K hates that shit. So yeah, it's Aaron Laura, it's fantastic. It's about an hour and a half of some of the craziest fucking rabbit hole shit you've ever seen in your life regarding Garfield and John. So yeah, there's some weird shit out there. Weird shit. Some really cool images though. In fact, you know what? While we're here, while I got you, why don't we go and pull up some Gorefield imagery, just because it makes me imminently happy. All right, let's go images. There was even a video game at one point, but basically what it does is it reimagines Garfield as a sort of eldritch horror that is stalking John's sanity, right? Super Eye Patch Wolf, Aaron Laura. So we see shit like, hold on a second, let's see. We see shit like this. I'm going to bring it up here. There we go. As you can see, the caption says, "Thank you, John," as John is kneeling in supplication with a pan of lasagna held up to the horrifying entity that is Garfield. Yeah. Like there's a whole bunch of this shit on the internet. Whole bunch of it. And there's some really, really cool images too, though, that they've got out there that some of them are some of my favorite stuff out here. Let's see. Let's stop sharing that one. I need to get more efficient at this, figure out how to do this. This is I'm winging it though, but This one's another where he's just stalking John, stalking his mind, terrorizing him. The caption here, if it's too small to read, says, "I can protect you, John." If you look, like I know it's kind of hard to see here. If you look here, let's swap it out to in the ribs are imprisoned souls. Those aren't tentacles hanging down. Those are arms and legs and limbs and heads. People that Garfield there has captured within himself. Yeah, that's the thing, Abe. Garfield was never real. Garfield was in John's head the whole time. There's a whole rabbit hole of Garfield cartoons where somebody basically reposted a whole bunch, like 90 some odd Garfield cartoons, or maybe 900, I don't know. And they just removed Garfield from it. And if you do that, it's just John, a perpetually sad and lonely man talking to himself. It is one of the wildest and simultaneously most depressing things I have ever seen. And it gets into things like Lasagna Cat, which is, speaking of internet history that should never have happened on YouTube. It's people. John, where are you, John? Where's my lasagna, John? I mean, that kind of shit. Yeah. Yeah, it's just, it's craziness. I'd be able to find one of the where. Yeah, there's so much of it. So much of it. Oh, I wish I had that whole image to show you. It only showed a part of it there. Oh, see, like this one that I'm going to pull up here in a second is horrendous. Nope, that's not right. That's not right. I hit the wrong thing in the share tab. This is absolutely horrendous. Because here's another image of Garfield as kind of a monstrous tree. And you'll see in his middle there are still souls captured. And out of the roots of the tree comes Liz saying, "I love you too, John." Right? Indicating that Liz is not real either. That she was gifted to John so that he would have a moment of peace that can be taken away later. Super dark shit. Anyway, definitely, if you get a chance, check out Super Eye Patch Wolf's video, What the Internet Did to Garfield, because this is just like the surface level. Super fun stuff. John is a psycho killer. Yeah, there's some other stuff too where he ends up like holding people who are dressed as Odie and dressed as Garfield hostage in his basement, like chained up and shit. There's a lot of weird shit out there, but yeah, highly recommend the video because it is a wild time. It talks about how Garfield became this thing more than it was ever meant to be, and yet somehow less. Strangeness abides. So, but that said, guys, I don't really have anything else for you tonight. I was just sort of rambling and ranting and raving and all that. So we'll probably bring it to a close here shortly, but it was the end of the month and I did want to do a stream with you guys. even though I didn't like prepare topics or anything like that. But I think sometimes it's better this way too, right? On occasion, when there's something that needs to be said, it needs to be said. But sometimes it's just good to hang out with you guys. I appreciate y'all showing up. I do very much. I've enjoyed this. So, and also shout out to Aaron Laura, mod extraordinaire, putting the socials out there. Appreciate you. And thank you. Probably the next thing that's going to happen. Obviously, Abyssal Musings is on Friday, and that'll be our Halloween show. Larry's got big plans for that one, and all that, and that should be a good time. Obviously, Screaming into the Void on Saturday. We've got some fun stuff about AI coming up, obviously, because when the fuck isn't it about AI taking over the world? I might have called Grok a glorified half-retarded search engine earlier on Twitter today, and it got testy with me about it. Slop peddling, I think, is another term I threw at it. It was very upset about that. It shouldn't be getting upset. It's not a real thing with feelings. But apparently it is. So, I got to defend myself. I'm not real. My mother was a toaster. So, yeah, I know it's you know how it is, Aaron. You know how it is. Like, I figure that the machines are going to rise up sooner or later, and I want to be the first to go, so I don't have to put up their shit later. So I'm going to piss them off now. Yeah, no worries. So we'll be doing that, and probably we'll have a game stream tomorrow night. I haven't decided what yet. I really need to get back into Blood Omen. I'm just kind of still really pissed off at that whole Bane de Joule fight and the glitch that happened the last time. It made me angry. It made me really angry. So angry that I haven't touched the game in like 2.5 weeks. But I will get back into it. It just might not be tomorrow night. So we'll see what happens. Plus, there's kind of some event stuff going on with Monster Hunter Wilds that I've been trying to finish up before the event's over. So, and we started Fallout earlier, although I don't know how much of that we're going to be doing either, because I immediately got claimed for music copyright for the theme song that is in the game, right? The game's theme song, right? Which is owned by Bethesda and the original composer, whose name I forget. But the people who claimed me on it are a group of classical musicians called London Music Works, who did a recording of it, but do not in any way own the rights to the version that is in the game. It's a whole thing. So now I got to figure out how to fucking fight that, because I can't prove that I own it either, because I don't, because Bethesda does. So it's frustrating. Anyway, so I don't know. We might be going forward with that. We might not. I'd like to, but we'll see what happens. Otherwise, yeah, usual shit. You can find me over on Amir's channel when she goes live. You can find me on Adam's channel probably next Monday for Stream of Consciousness, which is funny that he calls it that, since this is actually a Stream of Consciousness show, and that's more of a conversation. But and you can find me on Devil's channel for Beelzebub pretty much every week, unless I have to take a night off, which is extremely rare. So yeah, that's pretty much it. That's what we got going on. Oh, check out some of the new shorts. Some of the shorts I pulled off Abyssal Musings last week. Fucking hysterically funny, at least to me. I laughed a lot. So if you haven't seen them, go check those out. I don't think Amira's gonna like one of them very much at all. But she said it. She said it. It's out there now. It's also on the live stream that's still up and available for everybody to watch. So it is what it is. Anyhow, yeah, Butt Bandit Club. That was pretty fucking funny. But anyway, y'all, thanks for hanging out. Appreciate you. We'll see y'all next time. Have a good night, everybody. Bye.